Throughout human history, strange sights have been witnessed in the heavens. Depictions on cave walls and written records from our past testify to these mysterious happenings, and are found in every geological location and civilization known, from ancient times to our present day. In 329 BC, Alexander the Great and his army were molested by a pair of bright objects in the sky. According to the record, these bright objects swooped down on them, causing most of the men to scatter. Still, some of his braver men stood their ground, trying to hit the objects with spears, arrows, and stones from their slings. In the year 1492, Christopher Columbus recorded seeing a bright, glowing object descend from the sky, enter the waters, and slowly follow the ship he was on for several minutes. This event occurred only 4 hours before he and his crew discovered land. Minted in the 1860s, we find engraved on a French token a depiction of a saucer-shaped object in the heavens that some experts suggest may have commemorated a daytime UFO sighting. In 1716, the astronomer Edmund Halley of Britain recorded seeing strange objects in the heavens as well. He noted one of these objects lit up the sky for more than 2 hours, and its light was so brilliant that he claimed that he could actually read the pages of a book by its light. One of the largest crowds ever to witness a UFO occurred in 1970 in Fatima, Portugal. Nearly 50,000 people saw a huge metallic object standing in the sky and then begin to spin like a windmill. Finally, the object plummeted toward the earth, reversing itself at the last minute, shooting straight up into the sky and then vanishing into the sun. Many today believe the answer to this riddle may be found with the UFO experience. If UFOs really do exist, this raises some important questions. Who are the intelligent beings behind these flying machines? Where did they come from? Do they originate on Earth, or from a distant planet hidden amongst all the myriad of stars in the blackness of space? Are they friendly, hostile, or merely curious explorers of our Earth? If these beings came from another galaxy, some have estimated they would have come from a world at least 2 million light years away. That is to say, if they were traveling at light speed 186,000 miles per second, it would take 2 million years for them to reach our Earth. Even coming from some distant star in our own galaxy, it is estimated by many that it would take up to 70,000 years to reach our Earth from Alpha Centauri, the nearest star from us. It has been projected a spaceship traveling only 70% the speed of light for 5 years to the nearest star system would consume 500,000 times the amount of energy the United States uses in all of its cities in a single year. But there are other problems associated with space travel. Space is full of various gases and dust particles. Professor Edward Purcell, Nobel Prize winner and graduate of Harvard University, pointed out that a spaceship traveling at the speed of light would collide with this space material, and that if a space vehicle hit even one particle of dust, it would have the destructive force upon the ship to the blast equivalent of 800 tons of TNT. In addition, for an advanced civilization to travel from even the nearest star to our planet at the speed of light, their ships would generate so much energy in the form of electromagnetic radiation as they hit light speed, we would be able to see these beings coming years in advance of their arrival. And that we have never detected. More than 20 million people have reported seeing UFOs, including commercial and military pilots, astronauts, and many others, of which more than 2,500 were encounters with UFOs and the beings from them. NASA has videotaped them in space on numerous occasions. UFOs have been fired upon by missiles and fighter jets, but appear to be impervious to the attacks. They produce powerful electromagnetic pulses, often shutting down electrical machinery and vehicles. They produce bizarre and frightening reactions in animals, and often cause mental breakdown and other severe psychological disturbances in humans. It is noted they are able to materialize as if from nowhere and are seen just as often vanishing as if into thin air in the middle of a sighting. It should be noted they are able to perform unbelievable aerial maneuvers which defy all known laws of physics, including 90-degree turns traveling at several hundred miles per hour, and they have been clocked at speeds in excess of 16,000 miles per hour. Given the vast documentation over the last 45 years or so by the eyewitness accounts, photos, and videos, there really is no room left for doubt. UFOs exist.
Today's guest is back. You might say people either fall into the category of thinking that, creationism, God created the earth and man, or Darwinism, we all sort of evolved from lower life forms. And your research shows
Darwinism mostly, not so much creationism. If you believe, you believe. You're not subject to argument very much if you're a creationist. So I go after what the Darwinists say, and I show how that in fact they don't explain either how life came to be. Ask the question, where did we come from? And in part 4 of the book, I deal with that, and I believe that the Sumerians, the ancient Sumerians, and what they had to say about it, they say that on that planet the Sumerians do live another culture called the Anunnaki, and that in our past, in the past of Earth, at around 400,000 years ago, they came here to work, to do a job, which I go over in the book, and while here they decided to create a slave, to genetically engineer a slave, using the creature of Earth as a genetic base.
That we, the modern race of people, were genetically engineered by this superhuman race of aliens that came from other planets.
And that we look like them. We look like
that the modern race of people, were genetically engineered by this superhuman race of aliens that came from other planets.
and that we look like them.
This idea has been reflected and espoused by numerous others in recent years, including the eminent archaeologist and researcher Zecharia Sitchin, author of the best-selling series of books on the subject, The Earth Chronicles. Mr. Sitchin explains.
You can see here her features a little damaged. Her divinity was marked by the pair of horns that she had. She held a jar with the water of life, and she was surrounded as a decoration, but perhaps also symbolically, with a symbol that some refer to as...
He further states the entwined snakes are actually symbolic of the DNA molecule. Dr. Sitchin later concludes the records of the Bible teach a condensed version of the same general story of this Anunnaki race coming down from above and genetically engineering us, creating us in their image as a hybrid slave peoples to work and labor on their behalf. These beings, according to Sitchin's work, are the source of man's ideas of the gods and goddesses. But is this really true? Is the biblical account a mere condensed version of the same story as recorded on the Sumerian cuneiform seals? Or, in reality, does the Bible tell a different story and give us a different origin as well as a different reason to explain these heavenly visitations? What does the Bible have to say? In Genesis chapter 6, in the first few verses, we read that the sons of God saw the daughters of men and that they actually married them. And we also read, a little further on, that they produced children by them. This sentiment is reflected in all the major mythos of ancient cultures. The Bible not only describes this intermarrying of the angelic race with the human race, but also suggests these fallen angels taught their wives the magic arts forbidden by God, and yet today these very arts are receiving a huge resurgence of interest on a worldwide scale, and I do not think that this is by mere accident. It is obvious the histories of the Sumerians and other ancient cultures, including the Mayans, Incans, the Gita's of India, and numerous others, tell this similar tale of those who from the heavens came down. However, only the Bible deems these beings to be sons of God, or literally fallen angels, while all other cultures paint them in the light they most desperately desire, the role of God Himself. So perhaps these ancient records and modern-day UFO experiences do not really reflect those of aliens from faraway worlds, but rather, perhaps, they serve more as proofs of the angelic race. Jesus said in the Gospels that a man would leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife, and they being two would become one flesh. Most biblical scholars believe this to be the sexual union. But it is not the sexual union where a man becomes one flesh with his wife, but rather the resulting conception. So too, when Jesus refers to one flesh as marriage, He is likewise speaking of this physical fusion of the two gene pools. The fallen angels, those who came down from above, did take wives of all they chose, and they further applied genetic technologies with the women or upon the women to produce their amazing hybrid progeny. These offsprings were known as the Nephilim, and it was because of this corruption of man's gene pool that God destroyed all flesh from the face of the earth. He opened up the windows of heaven and smote the earth, causing the great deep to burst forth in one day. This resulted in the global worldwide flood. But Noah and his family found favor in the Lord. And God spared Noah and his family, for one reason only, because his line was the only human line left free of this demonic genetic manipulation and production of these fallen angels' hybrid seeds. Though the angels of God are very beautiful, Satan, one of the most beautiful angels at one time in heaven, and his minions have fallen from their first estate. And in spite of the claims of many, they look nothing like us. The Anunnaki did not come down from the heavens and genetically manipulate us to look like them. What they were attempting to do was to genetically manipulate themselves to look like us. This produced giants in the land and many hybrids with mutations with 6 digits on each hand. When God flooded the world, he destroyed these hybrids of humans and angels, but the angels themselves remain and have made many attempts to again enter into the human population and reintroduce this hybrid race. How is it that the angels could come down and intermingle with humans when they are spiritual beings? Well, we are also spiritual beings, but whereas man was created to live in a physical body, angels are created just a little higher than we. The angelic race, both good and evil, were created to have the ability to move back and forth between the spiritual and physical realms. They can transform themselves into any appearance they desire and become physical or non-physical at will. In the 18th chapter of Genesis, God appeared to Abraham in the form of 3 men, or angels, and these angels ate with Abraham. God's angels appeared many times throughout human history to people, and they were physical when they appeared. The book of Hebrews tells us a great many things about the general nature of angels. In Hebrews chapter 1, verses 13 and 14, it says, "But to which of the angels did God say at any time, 'Sit at my right hand until I make thine enemy thy footstool'? Are they not all ministering spirits sent forth to minister for them who shall be heirs of salvation?" This passage gives us the reason why angels can become physical. They were created to be messengers, ministers, and literally go-betweens of the physical and spiritual planes of reality. Later on in Hebrews, we are also told to keep kindness towards strangers and be generous to strangers, for some have thereby entertained angels unawares. While many think these are wormholes for beings to travel the vast distance of space from their world to ours, what we are actually witnessing is the opening of the chimney, or literally the windows of heaven, as recorded in Isaiah chapter 24. Then God declares the ends of these demonic angelic beings, as well as the royal bloodlines that worshipped and served them from the very beginning, and who helped these beings deceive the entire world through science, falsely so called, and the pharmacy arts. These beings are indeed with us, and have been since the fall in the garden. They are all around us, in the air, and usually beyond mortal sight and sound. They are a vast network of wicked spiritual beings on the verge of revealing themselves to the whole of humanity for the purpose of complete and total spiritual deception. These beings are very, very real, and every now and then we get a glimpse alerting us of their presence. These spiritual beings have never left our planet, not just in a figurative sense, but in a very literal sense. They have been ruling this planet through very specific bloodlines, who long ago swore allegiance to these beings in exchange for wealth and power over the human race. This Satan granted, in exchange for their cooperation in preparing the whole world for the ultimate spiritual deception these evil entities have planned. These bloodlines are literally able to be traced by genealogists all the way back to ancient Sumer and Babylonia, and these human familiars or pets of the demonic angels have worshipped Satan and his minions under many forms from the time of Sumer right up to our present day.
Most religions now are buying oaths for a dead horse. We feel that all religions are coming around to Satanism. We're in the very throes of a new satanic age. The evidence is all around us. All we have to do is look.
Many things in this journey through the last 13 years have blown my mind, and is more to come. But grasping the fact that people were involved in human sacrifice ceremonies and stuff back in the ancient world, okay, get my head around that. The fact even that some really kind of imbalanced people could be doing it today, yep, get my head around that. What really hit me was the scale at which this goes on, and some of the most famous people on this planet are involved in it.
Those who came down from above were often simply the bird people or the bird gods. Indeed, Jesus himself made this connection in the parable of the sower when he said, "The fowls of the air are Satan, who, when a person hears the gospel, immediately comes and snatches away the seeds sown in their heart." Birds are therefore very symbolic of these fallen wicked spirits, and to a lesser extent they have also been symbolically represented by the goat, serpent, dragon, and bull throughout much of human history. To this day, these bloodlines worship the ancient Sumerian and pagan gods, which are really nothing more than symbolized representations of Satan himself. Indeed, the great men and the mighty men of the earth worship and serve these fallen angels, and since these beings were physically removed by God, these same bloodlines, in servitude to their hidden masters, have been ruling in their place until they have prepared the way for the return of these Anunnaki, these Nephilim, by herding the human race into a one-world political and religious system totally controlled by these satanic forces, causing all, free and bond, rich and poor, to serve Satan's tyrannical government and to be under Satan's tyrannical control.
Bohemians and priests, the desperate call of heavy hearts is answered by the power of your fellowship. Dull care is slain. His body has been brought yonder from the funeral pyre to the joyous pipings of a funeral march. Our funeral pyre awaits. Thus buried across the shadowy tide, in all the ancient majesty of death, don't arch enemy of beauty. the rest will say, fire shall have its will of thee, and all the winds make merry with thy dust. Bring fire!
Of men in black and brown and the bound body on the back of the buggy. They drove behind big black tarps they had hanging out of the trees. There was lots of smacking on lips in bizarre enjoyment by the crowd. We still haven't made out exactly what was going on, but that a real sacrifice may have actually been developing according to some occult experts.
Now a question. What have Herbert Hoover, Art Linkletter, Jack London, and Richard Nixon all had in common? Well, they've all been members of the exclusive all-male Bohemian Club in California, where every year at this time, the elite from around the country get together for 2.5 weeks of fun and games.
Dozens of small camps, the most prominent of which is called Mandalay. Among its members are businessmen like Leonard Firestone and Edgar Kaiser, and political figures like Gerald Ford, Henry Kissinger, William French Smith, and George Shultz. President Reagan, Vice President Bush, and Defense Secretary Weinberger are members of other camps. Richard Nixon is a Bohemian, and so are high-ranking executives of such companies as Eastern Airlines, Standard Oil of Indiana, and Bank of America.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order.
Scripture makes it plain the agenda of these great men and of these familiar bloodlines is to lead men and women away from serving and worshiping God and bring them into a one-world unity of government and religion for the purpose of preparing the human race to worship and serve Satan in rebellion against God, knowingly or unknowingly by the mass population. They have a plan, an agenda they are carrying out for their hidden masters, and they also have a fiendish idea to weed out those who are with them and those who are not.
Finally from us this evening, technology on the cutting edge. We were interested today to hear that more than 100 law enforcement officials in Mexico are having microchips implanted in their arms. The chips allow a person to be scanned.
Florida family who are really pioneers in a brave new world. They have volunteered to be the first ever to have microchip identification devices implanted into their body.
You've already heard them say it. Gun owners, Christians, conservatives, libertarians, liberals, anybody that doesn't go along with global New World Order tyranny will be watched, will be controlled, will be tracked. The New World Order gang has a reason they want to control you.
Simply put, that reason is to make you and your family bow down, submit, and worship their hidden masters. To bow down to the bull or Baal, the evil bird god, Satan, who is the owl who sees in the dark and who, through these world leaders, is watching over his kingdom. The goal is the subversion of the whole of humanity, total domination over the earth, to turn men and women through fear, intimidation, and psychological manipulation to embracing these wicked spirits as friends of humankind upon their physical return to reign over all kindreds, peoples, and tongues. These puppets of the devil salute one another with the hand sign of the horned one, representing Baal, or the bull, or horned goat and horned owl. They are widespread throughout the world and represent some of the most famous and powerful men and women on earth, not just in politics, but entertainment, science, industry, and yes, sad to say, even religion under the guise of Christianity and other major religions. The evidence is in. The vast majority of the great men and mighty men of the earth are worshippers of Satan and his minions. The New World Order is not just about control, power, and economics. It's about spiritual deception. It's about deceiving the human race so that these wicked spirits can separate mankind from his maker and torment their souls for an eternity in hell. I wish I could say that I am making all this up, but unfortunately I'm not. Now listen to a true, noble American who tried to warn us years ago about this secret order of the fallen angels. Listen to his warning very closely.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silenced, not praised. No expenditure is questioned, no rumor is printed, no secret is revealed. No president should fear public scrutiny of his program. For from that scrutiny comes understanding, and from that understanding comes support or opposition, and both are necessary. I am not asking your newspapers to support an administration, but I am asking your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens whenever they are fully informed. I not only could not stifle controversy among your readers, I welcome it. This administration intends to be candid about its errors. For as a wise man once said, an error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it. We intend to accept full responsibility for our errors, and we expect you to point them out when we miss them. Without debate, without criticism, no administration and no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy. And that is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution, not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and the sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. This means greater coverage and analysis of international news, for it is no longer far away and foreign, but close at hand and local. It means greater attention to improved understanding of the news, as well as improved transmission. And it means, finally, that government at all levels must meet its obligation to provide you with the fullest possible information outside the narrowest limits of national security. And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance.
And indeed, like a self-fulfilled prophecy, the silent keepers quieted the opposition.
Not praised. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissenters are silent, not praised.
Any dissent is removed, and the masses, like cattle, are even now being psychologically conditioned to embrace the God of these powerful world leaders. They have been preparing the mindset of the masses for generations now to believe in and embrace these fallen angels, conditioning us through such programs and movies as Star Trek, Alien, The Stargate, and Worlds at War to receive the first visitors from the heavens as friends, and the second as an invading army that must be stopped with their help. These extraterrestrial visitors will present themselves as an advanced alien race responsible for our creation, who have returned to help us to evolve to the next level of supposed enlightenment, to help us all discover the divinity within. And indeed, more than ever before, the world is turning their eyes outward, searching for the answer to the question, is there anybody out there? Indeed, just as men are peering into the heavens in search of the answer, right on schedule these progenitors of the Anunnaki, the Nephilim, are being more and more obvious to the inhabitants of the earth. Like clockwork, they manifest and are soon going to make themselves visibly seen by the whole of the earth in accordance with end-time prophecy as recorded in the scriptures. By and large, the world will view these visitors from the heavens as physical beings from another world, in spite of evidence that it is not the case, and that, as the Bible teaches, their real origins are not physical but spiritual.
Houston, this is Discovery. We still have the alien spacecraft under appearance.
Seen and never expected to see footage like that, and least of all did I expect to see it on film or tape that had been exposed by the government. You see over and over again is you see UFOs materialize into the ultraviolet while you watch. You see them come from out of nowhere to the point where they are returning a response to the camera. You also see them dematerialize while you have them under observation. There's two of the central things that have gone on with UFOs since day one: materialization and dematerialization.
The materialization and dematerialization of these supposed spacecraft are more akin to ghosts than they are beings that are physical.
I don't see nothing down there. Can't be the motorcycles, honey. There's another sparkle. You see what I'm saying?
What is that?
Tree?
No. You've moved it, right? Right there. See it?
Uh-huh.
Look. Look. Isn't it those people?
Can't be.
There's no
not up in the trees.
Dr. Alan Hynek believes that we may be dealing with beings from another dimension, as he explains.
One of the most intriguing aspects of UFO sightings is their apparent isolation in space and time. Sightings are usually made in one place at a time and last for short periods, sometimes appearing out of nowhere and vanishing into nowhere. This is much more suggestive of a parallel reality than, let's say, visits from some faraway planet, in which case we might expect them to stick around for a while.
Now we've come to the conclusion that abduction, of their involvement with human beings, that this is the center of the entire UFO phenomenon, and that actually when people have UFO sightings, it's very possible that what they're seeing is something on its way to or from an abduction of somebody. They're not just flying around up there, they are interested very profoundly in human beings.
What? They were bald, no hair, no eyebrows, no eyelashes, and no earlobes, no ear. You know, we could say very large eyes.
I've had, since I wrote Communion, over 55,000 letters from people around the world who've had this similar things that think they have happened to them, and we still get about 200 a week.
Remember, my mother was taken in a Jeep, and that I was there with a UFO. There was a beam of light that came down, and I was beamed onto the ship.
In almost every abduction account by aliens, the abductees report enduring physical examinations where both sperm as well as female eggs are taken. Apparently, these beings appear to be profoundly interested in human reproduction. Some abductees even report they saw part human, part alien fetuses in large test tubes or incubator-like devices. If these reports are genuine, or even a small portion of these reports are genuine, it would appear these beings are experimenting with hybridization between themselves and our race.
is taken, ova is taken. I mean, there's a variety of experiments or examinations that take place during the course of an abduction.
The scriptures warn our generation, these mighty men and men of old will, just as in the day of Noah, re-infiltrate the human race. These demonic beings will convince those who are spiritually blinded to the truth that they were our creators. They will use the ancient Sumerian seals as the historical record, the same record, by the way, they themselves left here the last time they physically appeared on our planet. Despite the claims of evolution, there is little in the way of genuine evidence to support its claims. The missing link is still missing. However, when these evil spiritual beings emerge, the world will believe. It will all make sense to the fallen human mind. These beings that men believe came from Nibiru, Planet X, are the link between us and the large ape. Indeed, even though it is mere conjecture on the part of evolution, they will claim human chromosome 2 is remnant proof of past genetic manipulation, since it appears to be a fusion of two smaller large ape genes. Therefore, fallen unrepentant men will accept this coming lie and great worldwide deception. They will embrace these beings as our makers, believing them to be the missing link. After all, the account these evil beings left at Sumer state they combined their genetics with a creature already indigenous to the earth to form man. So it must be true. The problem of evolution is solved. They made us. And yet, these men will never stop to ask first, how did the indigenous creature they manipulated come into being to be here before they arrived? And again, they will also fail to consider the question, if they created us, then who created them? These beings are here now. They have always been here, but they are in need of a body to possess, in a final attempt to corrupt the human genome in the hope they can somehow avoid final judgment, and the body must be able to blend in with the rest of us if they ever hope to infiltrate our ranks and bring upon humanity complete spiritual deception. When they appear, they will present themselves as our friends, allies, and rescuers, here to save us from ourselves, to keep us from utterly destroying one another, and to act as warners, allies about another alien race on its way to conquer our planet. All these deceptions the vast majority of humanity will believe, and they will follow their newfound alien friends in war against the second invaders, not knowing that the invader that is coming is Jesus Christ, God Himself. And it just may be that the presenting of these demonic beings from heaven may be what triggers the rapture and Jesus coming and getting His own. Famine, violence, and war have always been with us, but something happened in Noah's day that was unique for his time, and this something was the infiltration of these angelic beings into the human race. Since the year 2000, there has been a 300-fold increase, both in the reports of UFO sightings as well as abduction accounts worldwide. Indeed, from the cameras of NASA to the ordinary person, in the last 7 years we have captured the most unbelievable photos and footage of these things than ever before. For certain, paranormal experiences in all categories appear to be more widespread, with far better documentation than in times past. So have these alien beings actually infiltrated the human race? Are they here now amongst us? And if they are, do they really represent advanced beings here to save us, enlighten us, move us to a higher spiritual understanding, and awaken us as to keep us from destroying ourselves and this planet? Or is there a more sinister, hidden agenda that will deceive the mass of humanity in an ultimate spiritual and psychological deception? Are they amongst us, blending in with us? Or is it really something else, too diabolical and horrifying to even fathom? As to the question of whether these beings have infiltrated our ranks or not, I'll leave that up to the viewer to decide.
Intelligent, sensitive. But take a closer look. Are these psychic children, indigo children?
Smart, intuitive, sensitive, strong-willed, and full of energy. Take a good look. These are called indigo children. 3-year-old Kai's mom says he has supernatural gifts and remembers past lives. 7-year-old Chandler frequently talks to an imaginary friend.
Sure that their DNA is changing.
Well, the interesting thing is there seems to be a difference in some of these kids in terms of Donvala Melchizedek talks about children in California that seem to have cured themselves of AIDS when they were born with parents with AIDS, and up to 2 years old still had them. But when they were about 6 years old, there was no trace of AIDS at all. And he said it seems that they found scientifically they've got certain codons switched on that we don't. In other words, we operate from, out of 60-odd codons, we only have about 20 normally switched on. These kids seem to have about 24, and they seem to have the ability to heal themselves. And this is what some of the star kids are saying, that these kids are born without programs. They don't even know what solid is. They have to learn what solid is because they see everything as energy.
Now, without any kind of extraterrestrial intervention, would these star kids, would they form naturally, do you think? Evolve naturally?
I don't think they would, because they talk about their genetics being changed on the craft, and that's been a deliberate program. Many of my clients have talked about genetic material being taken, both male and female, and they're aware sometimes that their genetics are actually altered just before they conceive a child, and feel and know this child is different. So they are being told, on some level at least, that this is happening. And it seems to be not only are they using or altering the genetics to create this enhanced super Homo sapiens, if you like, or new human, but they're also educating this kid on the craft, either in their sleep or through this downloading of information, which seems to be there.
All these things, Jesus said, would come upon this last generation. But it is far more than this. Jesus said in Matthew chapter 24, "Let no one deceive you, for many false teachers and false Christs will arise and deceive many." Indeed, Jesus warned that many would come in His name, and many would even claim that they are Christ Himself.
Said, but we're getting some, we hear different things about who this man is, and we'd just like some clarification. Are you secure?
Yes.
Do you believe and subscribe to who he is?
Of course.
Okay.
And who is he to you? Who is he to me? Yes. He's God. God on earth.
God on earth.
Second coming of Jesus. Who is he to me? He's God. God on earth.
The scriptures warn in the Corinthians that Satan himself masquerades or presents himself as an angel of light. Therefore, we should not be surprised that his ministers would do the same. And indeed, Satan, through these ministers, is spewing forth the same lie that he used in the Garden of Eden. Did God really say? Getting us to bring into question the authenticity of God's word. And the other lie? For God knoweth that the day that ye eat of it, ye shall have your eyes open, knowing good from evil, and be like God yourself. The lie is the same, just reshaped for the intellect of this generation. These beings have come to open our eyes and enlighten us, so that we may all see that we are God.
Creating the nature of reality. We can only create what we know. God only knows what we know. It's up to us to know more, bigger, better, more fabulous.
And his teaching, though, is about letting go of the personality.
His teaching, first, if you start with the personality, you're in trouble. Because everybody's going to argue for their limitations. Everybody does. No, the teaching is that you're God. That's the teaching.
Besides the false prophets, teachers, and messiahs, Jesus also spoke of natural disasters, earthquakes, famines, and droughts, which would be signs at the end of the age. And though it may be said these things have always occurred, Jesus stated they would increase both in number and severity. And indeed, since keeping records, they have increased both in force and number significantly. The status of Jerusalem and the Middle East currently threatens world peace exactly as prophesied. Global weather patterns are undergoing dramatic change exactly as prophesied. A great falling away from the faith, and many mockers and blasphemers are arising on the world scene as never before, exactly as prophesied.
The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction. Jealous and proud of it, a petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak, a vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser, a misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully.
We see a global new world order forming right before our eyes exactly as prophesied. And soon, very soon, the world population will be chipped and no one will be able to buy or sell anything without the mark. Once again, this is exactly as prophesied. These beings are here for one reason and one only, to deceive the human race and take as many as they can to the bowels of hell, where their soul shall not know rest day or night forever. Jesus warned in the last days there would be great signs and wonders in the heavens, and Scripture also states Satan and his angels will come down to us. Jesus is soon to appear himself. Isn't it time for you to receive him as your Savior and Lord? Isn't it time to embrace the true light of the world and turn off the night? Or will you also be spiritually deceived by the signs and the wonders of the age?